Over the past few days, something subtle but important has started to unfold around Blake Lively. Not headlines designed to grab attention, but actual courtroom decisions that could quietly shape what happens next. And the real question is, are these early developments just routine legal steps, or the beginning of something more significant? Over the past few days, the legal situation involving Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni has entered a phase that feels different from what we've seen before. Up until now, much of the discussion surrounding this situation has lived outside the courtroom, shaped by public reactions, speculation, and ongoing narratives. But what's happening now is grounded in actual legal movement, and that alone changes how this story should be viewed. Because in cases like this, it's not always the loudest moment that matters most. Sometimes, it's the quieter decisions, the ones that don't immediately trend, that end up shaping the direction of everything that follows. And one of those decisions has just taken place. A federal judge has ruled that a defamation claim connected to Justin Baldoni's side can move forward. At first glance, this might not sound like a conclusion, and it isn't. But in legal terms, it represents something meaningful. For any claim to proceed, especially one involving defamation, there has to be enough substance for the court to consider it worth examining in detail. It doesn't confirm guilt, and it doesn't validate the claim entirely. What it does say is simple: there is enough here to continue. And that alone is a development. The claim itself centers around statements that were allegedly made to individuals including Blake Lively, as well as others connected to the situation. According to Justin Baldoni's legal team, these statements were not only inaccurate, but also damaging in a way that affected reputation and perception. Now, it's important to pause here and acknowledge something clearly. These are claims, not proven facts. And in any legal case, that distinction matters. But what makes this moment notable is not the claim itself, it's the court's response to it. Because there was an attempt to have this claim dismissed entirely. A request was made to the judge to end this part of the case before it could move forward. And that request was denied, which means the court is not only allowing the claim to exist, it's allowing it to be explored. And in a broader sense, that changes the tone of the situation, even if only slightly. Defamation cases, by nature, are often difficult to pursue. They require a balance between free expression and reputational harm, and courts tend to approach them carefully. So when a claim like this is allowed to proceed, it tends to draw attention, not because it proves anything, but because it opens the door to deeper examination. At the same time, this is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. Because alongside this development, there is another layer that adds complexity to the entire situation. Justin Baldoni's legal team has also raised concerns about the volume of materials they have received from the other side. According to their filing, they were presented with an extensive number of documents, including a large collection of potential exhibits. To put that into perspective, preparing for a legal case already involves careful review of evidence, timelines, and arguments. When the amount of material increases significantly, so does the level of difficulty in preparing effectively. And that's exactly the concern that was raised. The argument from Baldoni's team is straightforward. In order to properly review and respond to this volume of material, additional time is necessary. And the judge agreed. As a result, certain pretrial deadlines have been extended. This includes adjustments to timelines that determine how both sides prepare their arguments before moving closer to trial. On the surface, this might seem like a routine procedural step. Extensions happen in legal cases all the time. But when viewed alongside the earlier decision, the defamation claim moving forward, it begins to paint a more detailed picture. Because what we're seeing is not just movement, but layered movement. The case is not only continuing, it's becoming more detailed, more complex, and more structured. And that matters. Because complexity in a legal case often leads to longer timelines, deeper analysis, and more strategic positioning from both sides. It also means that what might have once seemed straightforward is now becoming more nuanced. And that brings us back to the central question. When you combine these developments, a claim being allowed to proceed and additional time being granted due to the scale of information involved, what does it actually mean? Is this simply the natural progression of a legal case? Or are these early signals of a shift in how the situation might unfold? The answer, at least for now, is not entirely clear. Because legal processes are rarely defined by a single moment. Instead, they evolve through a series of steps, each one adding context, depth, and sometimes unpredictability. Right now, different observers are likely interpreting these developments in different ways. Some may view the judge's decision as a positive sign for Justin Baldoni's position, an indication that his claims are being taken seriously enough to continue. Others may see it as a standard legal threshold being met, something that doesn't necessarily predict the final outcome. And both interpretations, in their own way, can exist at the same time. Because at this stage, the case is still unfolding. There are still motions to be reviewed, arguments to be presented, and decisions yet to be made. And in situations like this, perception can shift quickly, sometimes based on a single new development, which is why it becomes important to focus not just on what has happened, but on what might come next. Because often, the early stages of a case don't define the outcome. They simply set the direction. And that direction, right now, appears to be moving toward a more detailed and extended process. One where both sides are preparing for a deeper examination of the facts, the claims, and the evidence involved. And as that process continues, the clarity that people are looking for may take time to emerge. But for now, what we do know is this: the case is active, the court is engaged, and the story is still evolving. As things stand right now, the situation involving Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni is not reaching a conclusion. It's entering a more detailed phase. The recent decisions from the court don't provide final answers, but they do offer insight into how the process is unfolding. A claim has been allowed to move forward, and additional time has been granted to review a growing amount of material. Individually, these may seem like routine developments, but together, they suggest that the case is becoming more layered and potentially more complex than it first appeared. At the same time, it's important to remain balanced in how these updates are interpreted. Legal cases often move through stages that can appear meaningful in the moment, but only gain real significance when viewed in the context of what follows. And right now, there are still many unanswered questions. What matters most is not just what has happened so far, but how the next steps unfold. Because in situations like this, outcomes are rarely decided early. They are shaped over time, through evidence, argument, and careful examination. So for now, the focus remains on observation rather than conclusion. And perhaps the most important question is still open. Are these developments simply part of a longer process? Or are they early signs of something more significant taking shape? Only time will provide that answer.